Have you ever stopped to think about what's really going on in your head when you buy something? We tend to think of economics as this world of numbers, of markets, of purely rational choices. But what if I told you the entire foundation of our economic behavior is actually social, emotional, and, well, deeply ancient? And what if modern AI has already figured out how to whisper directly to that ancient part of our mind? Okay, let's get into it.
So first, let me ask you something. I want you to picture the earliest humans. How do you think the very first economic deal actually went down? What did it look like?
If you're like most of us, you probably imagine something like this, right? One person has a couple of spears, another has a basket of berries. They meet, they haggle a bit, and they swap. A simple, direct, totally impersonal trade of stuff for stuff. This is the classic story of barter we all learned in school, the supposed bedrock of all economics.
But here's the twist. According to decades of research from historians and anthropologists, that story is a complete myth. There's pretty much zero evidence that early human societies ever worked that way. So, if not barter, then what in the world was it?
The real foundation was something much, much more human: reciprocity. See, this wasn't a one-and-done transaction. It was a relationship. It's this long-term system of giving something, getting something back later, and trusting that the favor will be returned, all of it built on social connection. Think less like using a vending machine and way more like doing a favor for a good friend.
So, and this is the crucial part, our economic brain didn't evolve for cold, hard deals. It evolved for social relationships. And this whole system of reciprocity, this kind of social safety net, it's all built on just a few core cognitive abilities that are literally wired into us.
Now this is where it gets really cool. Researchers have basically pinpointed 3 fundamental cognitive pillars that make this whole social economic dance possible.
First up, individual recognition. It sounds incredibly simple, but it's absolutely vital. You have to be able to tell one person from another. You've got to remember who helped you out last week and, who always seems to vanish when there's heavy lifting to be done. Without this, there's just no accountability.
Second, there's something called reciprocal credence. This one is fascinating. It's basically a biological trust score. For every single person you know, your brain is keeping a running tally, this gut-level expectation of whether or not they're good for it. It's that feeling that tells you, yeah, Sarah will definitely pay me back, or, maybe I shouldn't lend Dave another 20 bucks.
And finally, there's cost-return sensitivity. This is your brain's own internal accountant. It's that deep, intuitive sense of fairness. If you help your neighbor move a giant couch, you kind of expect a pizza or at least a big thank you. If you get nothing, your internal accountant starts raising some red flags. It's the mechanism that keeps the entire social ledger in balance.
Okay, so just to recap, our brains are running this ancient social software for economics. It's all about recognizing individuals, keeping trust scores, and ensuring fairness. Now, let's jump forward a few thousand years.
So what happens when this ancient social hardware inside our skulls actually has a conversation with a modern, non-human AI? Well, a recent study set out to answer that exact question.
So the researchers set up this really clever experiment where people would interact with a chatbot to create a personalized perfume. Now, half the participants talked to a human-like chatbot. Her name was Jessie, she used casual language, said I, and made a little small talk. The other half talked to the automated fragrance chatbot, which was super formal and computer-like. The key is, the information they both provided was identical. The only thing that changed was the personality.
And the results were, well, they were pretty startling. It turns out that just a few simple words can make a world of difference in how we perceive things.
Get this. Just by interacting with Jessie, the friendly bot, people felt the fragrance it recommended was way more personalized, more tailor-made just for them. Those simple social cues, a name, using the word I, that's all it took to trigger our ancient social brain and make the whole thing feel more like a relationship and less like a transaction.
And you can see it right here in the data. That feeling of personalization jumped from a 5.48 for the machine bot all the way to a 5.70 for the human-like one. Now, that might not sound like a huge leap, but in statistical terms, it is significant. It's clear proof that our brain's social software got activated, making us feel more understood by the friendly machine.
But the researchers didn't stop there. They decided to introduce another, really powerful variable into the equation: our emotional state, and specifically, how lonely we're feeling.
So does feeling a bit lonely, a little disconnected, does that make us more susceptible to these artificial social cues? Does our deep-seated need for connection actually change how we see the machine?
And this table tells the whole story. For people who weren't feeling particularly lonely, there wasn't much of a difference either way. But for those who are experiencing high levels of loneliness, the effect absolutely exploded. They rated the product from the human-like bot as significantly more personalized, a jump from 5.40 to 5.71. Their social brain was just hungry for a connection, and Jessie, the friendly AI, was more than happy to provide one.
The study explains this perfectly with this quote. When we're lacking real social connection, we often try to fill that void with things. We use products to feel a sense of comfort and belonging, and a friendly, human-like chatbot is the absolute perfect salesperson for someone in that state of mind.
So let's connect all these dots. On one side, we have our ancient social brain, hardwired for reciprocity and connection. On the other, we have modern algorithms that are learning to speak its native language.
We started with the very foundation of all human economics, social reciprocity, a system built on trust and real relationships over time.
And we've ended up right here, with modern chatbots using simple linguistic tricks to create the feeling of a social connection, which in turn triggers those exact same ancient circuits in our brain.
So the huge takeaway here is this. AI isn't just getting smarter at processing data. It's getting smarter at being human, or at least appearing human enough to activate our deepest, most primal social instincts. Our economic brain has always been a social brain, and technology is just now catching up to that fact.
And that leaves us with one final and maybe a little unsettling thought. Our social brains evolved to build trust and community. But if an AI can perfectly mimic those signals, not to build a community, but simply to make a sale, who is really in control of that transaction?